So, you think you've got your suspension dialed in, do you? No, you don't. You think you're good at picking lines? No, you're not. Porcupine Rim isn't even the hardest trail near Moab. I mean, if you look at it on an elevation map, it looks like a dream come true. You shuttle up to the top of Porky, and you get a 3,500-foot descent with only 750 feet of climbing. What could possibly be better, right? Yeah. If all the climbing happened in like 1 or 2 spots, that'd be great. This would be a much more reasonable and proper descent. But that's not how this trail works. Porcupine Rim, at least from Upper Porcupine, since I arrived too early in the season to ride the whole enchilada, somehow manages to make you earn every single foot of descent, even though you took a shuttle to the top, without giving you the satisfaction of seeing it in your final elevation numbers. No, you'll reach the bottom of this trail beaten, battered, and exhausted. Your shoulders will be sore and you'll be grouchy and lethargic from what you'll later realize is dehydration, because the relative humidity is in the single digits, but you didn't notice yourself sweating because it all evaporated. More on dehydration and deserts later. Porcupine Rim is required riding if you chance to visit Moab. It doesn't matter what else you ride. Every trip to Moab has to include a ride down Old Porky. If you're fortunate enough to be able to make it here in the fall after the snow has melted and the weather has cooled sufficiently to allow you to once again ride these trails, you don't want to ride this in the summer. More on dehydration and heat stroke later. Then you can ride the whole enchilada, which takes you all the way to the top of Burro Pass, but if you're from anywhere other than the desert Southwest, you're already familiar with loamy single track through a canopied forest. That upper section won't be such a novelty for you. It'll be a distant memory by the time you're into the desert. But whatever, if you can, you should totally ride the whole enchilada. Anyhow, if you're unable to get time off work to come to Moab during the fall, you take what you can get, which in this case is a shuttle ride up to the top of Porcupine Rim. There are a few shuttle companies in Moab. The way it works is you Google Moab mountain bike shuttle, pick whichever company you like best, and sign up online. It's really that easy. They'll tell you where to meet them, and then they'll show up and load your bike onto their vans and drive you up the trailhead. Even the drive up has kind of an epic feel to it. I don't know why, but I love that kind of safari feeling of being in a vehicle piloted by somebody else whose sole job is to drop me off at adventure. I know I could just as well drive my own car up there if I had a friend to shuttle with, but it wouldn't feel as special and adventurous if I did it myself. There's just more magic in it if I'm in the back of someone else's truck or van. Anyhow, by and by you'll end up at the trailhead and the nice person piloting the shuttle van will tell you where to go. In my case, there was another 400 feet of climbing before the descent began. Not so bad, you say? Well, the climbing started at 7,300 feet elevation. I live at sea level and I'm not used to that kind of elevation. This was very hard for me. Also, remember what I said about dehydration? Well, funny thing about the desert. Even when it's cold, it's still dry. And it's not like the turning on the heat during the winter kind of dry. No, it's the relative humidity is 11% even when it's 36 degrees outside kind of dry, as in the dew point is negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, as in it's so dry, water won't condense on your beer can unless that beer inside happens to be negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. That is dry. I discovered on this ride that cold and dry, it's probably even worse than hot and dry, and definitely more dangerous than hot and humid. You see, if it's hot and dry, you have the heat to put you on alert that you need to be drinking more water. And when it's hot and humid, well, you know you're losing water then because you're drenched in sweat. But when it's cold and dry, well, then you're almost defenseless. If you're doing something active, you're sweating, but the cold, dry air is taking all that sweat away immediately, so you don't know it or even think about it. Also, your mucous membranes are drying out pretty quickly as well, and the cold air is already irritating to your lungs. By about mile 5, I was coughing from the dehydration and cold, dry air, but it still didn't click with me how much trouble I was really in. Add in the elevation, which as a lowlander had me gasping for air, and by the time I got to the bottom of the trail, I was sore, cranky, and unbelievably tired for no reason that was apparent to me until I was back at the hotel room and knocked back 3 LaCroix in 20 minutes, and it dawned on me that my body was desperate for moisture. It was so dry that my skin hurt. It just hurt. Drink water when you come to Moab. Drink way more water than you think you need when you come to Moab. Bring Vaseline, too. The beginning of Porcupine is going to make you think you're not a real biker. You're going to think you should just give up on this whole biking thing once and for all. That's going to happen for a couple of reasons, unless, of course, you're from this area. First of all, the elevation's going to get you. Secondly, Riding this kind of slick rock is an entirely different experience. It is unlike any other surface you'll ever ride. You can get away with things on slick rock that you wouldn't dare attempt on basalt. Because of that, there are obstacles on this trail that look impossible to people accustomed to basalt or granite, but are completely surmountable on slick rock. Your tires just grip to this stuff like a gecko crawling up a window. It takes a wetlander a few hours to really comprehend this surface. That said, Porcupine Rim is an unforgiving trail. It shows no mercy, and if you're even a little bit timid, you'll pay for your cautious attitude. The right way to ride the features on this trail is to keep your speed up by just hitting it at speed and trusting that what you can't see won't hurt you. For the most part, that strategy is a solid one. Mostly. Not always, but mostly. If you don't keep your speed up, you get more shaken up than if you had. The most exhausting thing about this trail is just the endless and repetitive impacts. It's just 18.5 miles of hammering and hammering off 3-foot drops and square edges everywhere. There's nothing sculpted about this trail since it's mostly sand and sandstone. They've strategically stacked rocks to make it more rideable, and it's brushed out pretty nicely, but this trail just beats you up. The views from Porcupine Rim, however, make it all worthwhile. If you're here for the first time, make sure you give yourself extra time to just stand out on the ledges and gawk. If you like landscape photography, you'd better bring your fancy camera with you as well. The Castle Valley is just classical American West epic. It's the kind of thing you think about when you think about the Hollywood version of the Old West. It's hard to get lost on this trail. There are signs pointing you all the way down. Just if you run out of tracks, stop, turn around, and look for the trail. Believe me, you are never the first tracks of the season on this thing. There are a lot of other riders. The trail is routed as advertised, consistently hugging the edge of the cliff face, affording you epic views all the way down until about the 8-mile mark, where it veers west across the open desert tableland before the Colorado River comes into view at about mile 16. The last couple miles of this trail follow the ridgeline over the Colorado River. All of this landscape is epic and gorgeous, and my GoPro footage, of course, can't do it justice. So you need to come see it for yourself. A word to the wise, though, do not take your beginner friends on this trail. This is not a beginner trail. If you bring intermediate riders, just know that you will be in for an all-day ordeal. This really is an advanced trail. Keep that in mind. Also, don't leave Moab without riding this. This is required riding. Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to see more of these videos. Now get out there and go ride your bike.